There's a reflection of me in the background, so hi. What's up guys, Sam the photographer here, and today I want to discuss a topic that I'm not sure a lot of photographers my age know. And I know that there's a lot of young, creative photographers out there. You guys should know your rights as a photographer when you're out in a public place. I want to break down photography law the best way that I know it. That way when you guys get approached, you're not like, and then like you're walking around like sheep because some security guard told you to bounce or some police officer told you to leave. If it's a police officer, it gets a little more, what's the word for it, intense. It can escalate quickly, but you should know your rights as a photographer on what's okay and what's not okay. So first and foremost, if you're in a public place or in a public space, you have a legal right to photograph whatever you want. And that comes with people, that comes with places, things, nouns. But yes, you are in your legal right to photograph whatever you see as long as you're in a publicly open place. Of course, you have to be careful with that because you can annoy some people, or you can have them sort of think that you're stalking them if you're following them around like a park or like around the city and you're continually taking them to photograph. You have to use your common sense on like what's okay and what's not okay. For example, you can take a photo of people at the park, no problem, right? But you can't do that like at an ATM if someone's trying to put in their pin and you're like that's not cool. As long as you're in a public place and you see a building that you want to photograph, go ahead and photograph it as long as you yourself as a photographer are standing in a public place. Now if you cross that border and go into the private property of that building, then that's when you're obligated to listen to whatever the security guard has to say because you're now on their turf. So if that makes sense. If you're on public land, they have no way of kicking you out because you're on public land. Even if they say they're going to call the cops, this and that, you don't have to move if you don't want to. However, security guards, if they are going to get that aggressive with it, they'll probably just stand in the way of your shot anyway, so it might not even be worth it. This is the sort of thing where you have to pick and choose your battles. But if it's a battle that you guys want to fight, you should know how to fight it. As long as you can be on the same sidewalk as the building, you can literally be steps away from the front door, but as long as you're on the sidewalk, you're fine. Now, there are some things where you can be on the sidewalk but still get in trouble. Say you have a tripod and that's what you're using to take photographs of these buildings. As long as you're not blocking the way of people walking as pedestrians on the sidewalk, you're fine. But if your tripod is blocking the way, then you become an obstruction, and then that's when you can get in trouble with that. So that's when a police officer can come and sort of shut down what you're doing, maybe even give you a citation. Just be careful on the traffic on that sidewalk. So if you're trying to do it in like Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York, so you don't want to be an obstruction, but you are in your legal rights to use a tripod. Same with the monopod if you want to do that. If anything, that might be a little safer, but you still could be an obstruction if you're just standing there and people have to like walk past you, and plus you're gonna get a really shitty shot. And just to even extend this one more, you're even allowed to use a flash. As long as you're not doing it in a stupid way, like using your flash, but your flash gun or your strobe is pointed in the direction of traffic, so you're blinding drivers, then that's when it's not okay. But as a person with a normal working mind, you should know that that wouldn't be cool anyway. So if you're just trying to illuminate your shot of a building or a person, so say you're doing portrait work outside and you're using a flash or some sort of strobe, you can totally do that. You can totally do that as long as you're in a public place. Public place is like going to be the key word to this all the time. Public place, public place, public place. Okay, so that's just sort of that right there. As long as you're in a public place, you can do pretty much whatever you want with photography. And I believe the same laws also apply with videography. So if you're doing some sort of like documentary style film, or you're trying to do like more of a lifestyle street film, you can totally do that as well. Another point that I want to bring up, say security does get in your face and it's like you have to leave the premise. You know, just use your best judgment, be polite, and also if you already got your shot, just bounce. Let them know that you are on public ground but it's not a problem. You'll go. Now, if the security guard does get physical and he's like grabbing your tripod or grabbing your camera or grabbing you, you can definitely call the police. If you're on public ground and a security guard comes off of private property into public ground and starts attacking you, that could potentially become assault and battery depending on how bad it gets. And if so, you definitely want to call the cops before that happens. Or if it is happening, try to get attention from the other pedestrians around, or if you want to go stab, just knock the guy out. Just kidding, don't do that. If you do strike back, you could argue self-defense, especially if you have a video camera going the whole time. Just be smart, use your common sense, and be polite. And also, if a security guard does come, be sure to get their name, their employer, and what legal grounds are they speaking from. Where in their job does it say kick photographers off public property? You want to make sure that they are in their legal right to kick you off of public property, which they're not. So they automatically lost. But if you want to flex on them a little bit and make them look dumb, go ahead and do that. But do it in a polite way. Do not come off just as angry and crazy as they are. Believe me, if you kill someone with kindness, that sort of like messes up their whole argument to even begin with. Now they're just pissed off for no reason, which is kind of funny. You know, after the whole situation's over, if you want to, go ahead and put it on your website. Talk about your civil liberties and how they were violated by a security officer telling you you cannot photograph on public land. Or you can take it to local radio stations, local TV stations, and see if they want to do a story on you. It'll hit a lot of photographers because I'm sure a lot of photographers do not know their rights. So you can be that push on spreading education for the other photographers, especially younger photographers of, I guess, my era, who may not know their legal rights. As long as you are on public land, photographing whatever you want to photograph, they can't kick you out. Same goes with the police officer. Police officers can do the same thing. They can roll up to your spot. If you already have gotten your shot, there's kind of no reason to argue this. Be like, yeah, no problem, whatever, I'm gone. But if you want to fight it, you can argue the same thing with the police officer. So say the officer wants to look through your pictures, right? Or look through the pictures on your phone. Especially the one with the phone, I know for sure, they're going to need a warrant to search that because you are protected on the Fourth Amendment with that. So they're going to need a warrant to search through your phone. And I'm just assuming that that also extends to your camera. The only way that an officer can take your camera is if they believe that you're doing some sort of an act of terrorism. In this day and age, I'm sure that they would just throw that card anyway. So it's best to just, when an officer comes, if you already have gotten your shot, just bounce. Just bounce. Because if they do arrest you, not only are you getting arrested, so you now have a criminal record, they can confiscate your camera and you won't get that camera back for a long time. Another thing that I also learned is that they cannot legally delete any images that you have without a court order. And I'm sure they would just go ahead and just delete photos anyway, maybe even take a few silly selfies, but they cannot do that without a court order. And always when you're explaining to a security officer or a police officer, just kill them with kindness, don't be a unless they're being unnecessarily harsh with you. Then you can go ahead and fire back a little bit, but if you see the situation escalating to a whole other level, doesn't have to go, just walk away from it. You'll walk away with your camera, your pictures, and you'll be fine. If you're taking a picture of a building, say if it's Levi Stadium, so if you want to sell it for your own personal use, say you have a website and you took a really dope photo of Oracle, you're going to need to license that photo through Oracle, and whatever terms you guys agree on is whatever it is. And I'm sure with buildings and arenas and whatever like that, venues, they're going to want a good chunk of that. So it's not even worth it at that point. I mean, unless that photo is selling like crazy, then I mean, by all means, go for it. But you cannot legally do that. You'll see a fat lawsuit coming your way, and then, you know. But on the other hand, you can sell that exact same image to, say, a newspaper. Maybe the newspaper wants to do an article on this particular venue or this particular building, and you just happen to have a really good photo of it. You can sell it. Same goes with people. If you catch someone crossing a sidewalk, right? A newspaper wants to do an article on like how to cross the street safely. You can sell that image just as long as you can't see the person's face all the way. If you can't see the person's face, you're gonna want to take that into post and just blur that out as much as you can. Or you can honestly make them sign a release form protecting you and giving you permission to sell this photograph to the newspaper for this particular article. You can do that as well. But you have to be careful, because if that newspaper used that same image and was like drug dealers in your area, and you can clearly see this person's face, the news is going to put out that this guy is a drug dealer. They're going to suggest this person is a drug dealer, and you were the photographer that took that photo. If that person sees this newspaper and is like, hey, that's me, I'm not a drug dealer, who's this photographer, I'm going to sue the crap out of him, now you're back in trouble. You just have to be careful on who's in your pictures or what's in your pictures. If it's a famous venue, just be careful. If it's a person that you can clearly identify, just be careful. Just be careful. That's the name of the game. Just be careful. There are some buildings that you cannot legally photograph, and that's okay. They're gonna be military. You cannot photograph military buildings, and you can't photograph like nuclear energy buildings. And as a photographer, I don't see why you would want to anyway. You're gonna get in huge trouble if you get caught photographing these buildings. They can arrest you on site. They may even shoot you. I don't know. You're for sure your camera's gone. You can kiss that goodbye. Just bye. Yeah, so you gotta be careful. I don't see why you'd want to photograph these particular buildings. But then again, if you do, you have to go about it the right way, which is getting permission from the building owner and going about it that way. So yep, that's pretty much it. Know your rights as a photographer. Be smart out there, guys. But as long as you are on public land, you can photograph damn near anything. Cool, so you guys already know what it is. Catch me on the tube, catch me on the gram, catch me on the book, so you know where to look. I am Sam's photographer, and I'm happy to educate you guys on your laws and your rights as photographers. Keep safe out there, and until next time, guys, peace, 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 peace.